what is a sustainable infrastructure management manager, and why did we become a B Corp? It's actually an easy answer, but I think while we were talking about policies and regulation, and I think a part of the job has to be done by the market players themselves, because regulation and policies will never actually have an impact if we don't engage as market players and embrace sort of this whole journey. So the way we look at it is at three levels for being a sustainable manager. The first one, and that sort of answers the brown or green question, we integrate fully into our investment process the whole ESG and impact. And when I say fully, it's from selection, but it's also from managing the asset, because there's a lot of focus on creating new green asset, but we have to deal with the stock of brown asset. And the brown asset, if you are a long-term asset manager, as we are, we keep working on it for 25 years because you can improve brown assets. And this transition process is quite important. There are assets, because we're only talking about carbon here and climate, but the economic contribution or the positive impact of roads, airports that are sometimes contributing to in the wrong way to the carbon footprint, but those can be improved over time. Things can be done for the aviation industry to actually improve their carbon footprint. So the brown is not to be forgotten, and that's why you need to fully integrate in your investment process, but in your asset management process and how you run company and infrastructure projects to improve that footprint over time. The second level for us, which is important, is measuring. You cannot talk seriously if you don't have the right tools to actually measure impact and to actually measure your alignment to the Paris Agreement. And that's what it took us 3-4 years to be able to have all the tools to be able to measure, but not only the green things, but we think it's also important to look at a broader spectrum of sustainability by including, and we use the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN to do so, and define 5 pillars that we measure things against in terms of impact. I mean, obviously the first one is how we deliver sustainable infrastructure and cities, but the second is the acceleration of the energy transition. The third is the alignment with the Paris Agreement. How do we make sure that all our portfolios, investment portfolios, are actually aligned with the 2 degrees? Actually, we're now setting targets of 1.5 degrees for some of them already. Then we have inequalities, for example, SDG 8 and 5 with gender, which is quite an important, and the last being biodiversity. And this is sort of a Bible for the company, and this is why we transformed ourselves into a B Corp, to be able to put in our bylaws those goals and those values in terms of target. And that leads me to the third level, which is important, is aligning remuneration of managers and people within those managers with these goals, because nothing really works if not everyone is aligned. So managers' fees and carried interest should have the impact component into it, so asset owners that we manage money for can actually see that we align with what we're saying. And then the people and the employees or the managers also have to have a remuneration aligned with this. So this is, in a nutshell, sort of a 3-level within a company like ourselves, how we see this full integration to commit to sustainability on the long term. You on mute, so.
now you can tell me I'm on mute. Thanks for that. Just to get down, we're obviously want to get through the speakers, but just to get down to the brass tacks of infrastructure investment. Do you see enough incentives out there for large investors to be investing in green infrastructure projects? or enough disincentives not to be investing in, let's call them dirty infrastructure projects, and what needs to happen in your view as someone who looks at the financing of this through a microscope, obviously, because you're committing capital for a long time?
I mean, to be honest, the very dirty one, I think all of us and asset owners have excluded them already. I don't think you will find many people investing in coal, or I don't think you'll find many people investing in the very dark sort of activities. And this is where the taxonomy from the EU is very helpful. Because the sort of do no harm perspective is quite important as a first level, but it's not sufficient. And as I say, we need to transform things. It's not only about channeling new green money into new green infrastructure, it's also about fixing those that are existing, because we can't just get rid of a stock that is there. So it's not about creating a parallel market, is being holistic about how the entire infrastructure system becomes greener as a whole. So there are new investment to make, there are innovations, there are all sorts of things to actually drive it. So today, for me, there are enough incentives, but perhaps increasing transparency on the reporting will help further. I think the asset owners, at least I've seen a significant shift since COP21 in the desire for asset owners to move into the right direction. But one thing that, despite the fact that I'm a big supporter of the EU taxonomy, we cannot just forget about the transition part. The black and white world will not get us to where we want to be. We do need to allow for certain sort of gray activities to become greener and not necessarily put them in the wrong box immediately. So that transition need to be allowed. But that's also something which is very important for emerging markets, because in a way, the taxonomy, it's rather, I would say, rather easy for the rich European Union. But some economies around the world, some of them will need to move from heavy fuel in 80% of the production of electricity, perhaps through gas, perhaps through other things, before they get to 100% of renewable or whatever percentage it is, which is exactly what the UK has done in the past, going through gas, from coal to gas to nuclear, to actually reach their goal. So these transitions are quite important, and I think we often forget them in the equation. It's not going to be all shifting the money to green, it's also shifting the brown to green.